Tango 1 at the top, we are at Pop-Up Vehicle. 10-4, Tango 1, you have control. Tango 1 copy. Stand by. Stand by.
Integrity, passion, resilience. That's what this place was built on. That's what our community is founded on. Don't act like the example, just be the example. This is the home of the greatest fitness community in the world. We're trying to create strong, able bodies, resilient to injury with a gas tank to get shit done. If there's one thing from this podcast, it's about taking immediate action, find the problem, fix the problem. This is your opportunity. It's either a hell yes or a fuck no. It's that simple. You're ruining the Tango 1 podcast. Now is the time to take action. Now's the time to do more and be more.
Welcome to Tango 1 Podcast, everybody. I'm your host, Tony Smith. As always, I'm trying to bring in great guests and people from my network to help you guys to identify and take action against weaknesses. Today, I am bringing in a young Amherstburg phenom here, maybe the youngest guy I've ever had on the podcast. I got Linden Crain, who's a newly elected, 3-4 months now, town councilor.
October 24th or 25th, yeah.
Very new to this game, but has been involved in it. That's how you got your name involved. And we wanted to bring in here, talk to you about Amherstburg topics, talk to you about your drive as a young man, and whatever else might come up. So thanks for coming on.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So Linden is also the host of Coffee with Crainer. It's a local podcast. You shot almost 100 episodes as well, right?
Almost itching on 100. Two more episodes, and then we're there. So. And
you've had some great guests. A lot of times it's so funny. I go to book a guest, and I'm like, we're literally the week, like Joe Siddle, him and I have been working on that forever, and I'm like, oh, he's on Linden the week before. That's so funny. We have a lot of common guests. We have a lot of common friends. You and I have not sat down, though, for too long outside of that podcast before this, so looking forward to chatting with you. So, how old are you, first of all?
22.
22 years old. Man, so 22 years old. I wonder what most people were doing at 22 years old. Has there ever been anybody on the podcast, on town council at 22?
In Amherstburg, no. I believe the youngest was 28. I'm the youngest in Amherstburg. So.
Was that Mayor Hurst? I feel like he was there for 40 years.
I think it was a Thrasher.
Oh, a Thrasher? Okay.
Thrasher. Can't remember the first name, but it was a counselor, I believe. Thrasher something, 28. Yeah. That's all I know.
Do some history lessons there. Yeah. So what made you want to do that at so young, and when did this become a goal? I guess it's two questions in one.
Yeah. Became a goal probably high school. I thought about it a little bit, and then going into university and being on student senate, I was interested a bit more. And then from working at the mayor's office at the city of Windsor, that really hooked me in because I was learning so much about municipal government. I was right in the weeds of it. So, I thought, well, I'd love to do this same thing, but in Amherstburg, and decided to put my name in. Didn't care about my age, didn't care about, perhaps the lack of experience that I might have compared to others. I just wanted to get in there and start making a difference.
Yeah, well, there's a huge argument towards the young versus experience versus age. I started as a cop at 21. Most people don't do that. I started on the SWAT team very young too. And yes, I was super inexperienced when I started, but that gave me this ability to, the younger you are, the faster you soak up information, soak up experience and knowledge,
Big
right?
Big
and
time.
The more you can pull from other people, and then that gives you this incredible, 10 years from now, I think it can really slingshot you to where you want to be. And then we, as a community, if you do your part as the counselor, we as a community have a much more solid 32-year-old version of Linden Crain, right?
Yeah.
Way more experience rather than getting into it when you're 32 and trying to learn all these ropes.
Yeah, I think without giving me that opportunity, there's no way I would have gained that experience. You know what I mean? So in order to get experience, you have to be given that opportunity. So that's how I looked at it. Right?
Yeah, and I see it as there's the ability for some longevity, some continuity, whether you stay right in the weeds in here or other aspirations, but it now gives us somebody who will represent whatever level that might be, will represent people from Amherstburg. I think that's huge.
It was actually, so I was in Toronto last weekend for a conference, and there was a 18-year-old that was elected as a councillor. I didn't have the chance to speak with him, but that was interesting and just kind of mind-blowing. 4 years younger than me, 18. First year he could vote, and he was elected as a councillor. That was wow. And it showed it doesn't matter really what age you are in politics. I think it's just you need somebody there that's going to represent the people and be able to listen and address those concerns. It doesn't matter what type of experience or background that you have, what education.
I mean, I think it does. I think it matters that whole council has a variety of
Yeah,
like
exactly.
there's like not everybody should be a businessman, you
Yep,
know, a
for
white
sure.
businessman in their 50s, right?
Yeah.
Like there should be representations from more, different backgrounds of work, of labor, of ages, of to represent all of races, everything, right?
Yeah.
And I know my first experience in Amherstburg, when I first moved here and opened up a business, I was having some issues, some parking. It was such a minor issue, and we end up having to go to town council, and I was so like absolutely unimpressed.
Yeah.
And I could not believe it. And so I know now I'm like, man, you can't just complain if you don't do anything about it. Right. So that became a thing where it's like, yeah, let's do our part to like identify these people, to get to know these people, so we can now vote and hopefully have people that we feel represents us best in our growth here in Amherstburg.
Yeah. 100%.
So with you, like, what did you must have learned a lot in the last like running? I know that we were talking to Don, and Don couldn't believe the, how many, websites and how to get votes and how to walk around. Like, what was your biggest lesson from that whole candidacy?
Probably, I think it just takes a lot of hours and a lot of work. I saw that whatever I put into the campaign led to that success. You don't win by not knocking on doors. Like, you can't underestimate the power of door knocking. I wish I could have knocked on more doors, but we were a bit time constrained. It was an issue. Yeah, probably hard work. I mean, like, at the time I was in my MBA program before I got elected, so I'd go to school from like 8 to 1, and then the entire afternoon I'd just pound pavement and knock on doors. So time management was also extremely important, because as the daylight would go away in the evening, you got to make sure that you can get out there and knock on doors before it's too late and you run out of time. That's why I was the first one in Amherstburg to actually announce that I was running back in, I think it was June. Some don't even announce until like September, maybe first week of October. I wouldn't recommend that, but yeah, it's just like time management, meeting, like attending events, meeting people, showing them why you're worthy of the position, and then really trying to brand yourself as someone who knows what they're talking about and really has that vision for the town. That's why I had a pamphlet, and I would try to share that message at the door and hope it would resonate with people and start to trigger some type of discussion, so that when I go back into council where I'm at now, I have a list of concerns and ideas that I learned at the door. Door knocking for me was the best way to survey and canvass the community and gain understanding of where we're at and where we need to go.
And did you find much difference from like one neighborhood to the next in terms of their concerns and their...
Big time. Different parts of Amherstburg are worried about different things. Downtown's worried about, certain things than out in the concessions. So it was different depending on the neighborhood. Out in Malden Center, they really care about, their parks and recreation facilities, active transportation, the roads, being connected to the town. Sometimes they feel like they're left out in Malden or McGregor or River Canard. So it all depends. Like, I went to River Canard and they just had a brand new park installed. I was on the foundation that helped put the park in, and so they were quite satisfied with their park facilities. But you go to Malden Center, now they want the tennis courts back open, or they want the pavilion back up. So it all depends what's near them.
Right. Everybody's kind of concerned, and that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
The concessions are looking for, I'm sure, like bike lanes and
Yep.
safe places for their kids to walk. Downtown, we're concerned with why the fuck are the buses dropping bums off in front of my business, and the open streets, all kinds of things like that. We have all kinds of, we all have different issues, and we all try to bring them about. And then you guys, your job is to kind of make decisions of where the information is going to go, where the funds are going to go, and go from there. So you talked about branding yourself. So like the word branding sometimes can bring distrust, and I know branding is important for me, and Irv actually was doing my marketing for a while, and well, still does obviously, but I found having him, if he was writing posts for me, then I felt like my branding, even though he had guidelines, he has a good understanding of what I'm doing, it wasn't completely authentic. So where do you see yourself? What are you branding yourself as, and how is that really you? That's kind of a question
100%.
people would ask.
Yeah,
Oh,
like
especially in politics. Like, to be honest with you,
Yeah.
that's not even a personal thing. That's like a politics thing. Like
Yeah.
politicians.
For me, my branding's all about sharing the community story. I love just posting and celebrating the great things that are happening. I try not to post anything that's too political on social media, because as a counselor, like reading Facebook comments and just focusing on that, I don't think will help you make an educated decision. There's a small minority that might be on Facebook. Let's say I get 10 comments. I can't base, wanting to put a basketball court here or fix this road because of 10 Facebook comments, right? So I try to make sure that everything I'm doing is positive, and that hopefully will emulate to others, because there's so many great things happening in Amherstburg, and that's how I've been trying to brand it, right? I really don't want to deal with any toxic stuff online, so I don't post anything that's going to bring that.
Right.
So,
yeah, I mean, the comments, being a cop, that was one of the things too.
Yeah.
Never read the comments. But the comments, and we have discussions right there at that desk all the time in the meetings. We have 250 members across this county, and one of my team members will say, everybody's saying, or everybody. I'm like,
yeah,
everybody? Define everybody. Did you hear this from 2 people? Because that is a 0.5%. Doesn't mean we shouldn't consider, we shouldn't
Absolutely.
listen to it. Everything's heard and considered, but not everything needs to be acted upon.
Yeah,
Right?
I think that's a mistake some elected officials can make, right? 3 people have approached them about an issue, and now they go to council and they say, this is a major issue in the community. A lot of people have been reaching out to me. We need to fix this, when it might end up being just 3 people. Doesn't mean that issue is not important, but you got to think always what's in the best interest of the entire community, not just your neighbor or somebody that lives near you.
Yeah, exactly. I agree with that wholeheartedly. Especially, who's, I think for you guys to consider, which is tough too, is like I said it before we went on, like nobody really wants to go in and sit in on town council. No offense. It's just not, like it's 3 hours of your night. It's long. It's there's a lot of stuff and you're like, well, I don't even know what they're talking about right now, right? But so how do those voices get in there? If you're not willing to go to town council, how do you get heard? Like, if I have an issue, if I want to complain about, like I said, the buses, how do I get heard without going to town council? Is there a way, or do I just have to go?
So what I've been trying to do is really market myself online. I think social media is helpful. I put my phone number everywhere. Like if you go on all my accounts, my phone number, my email is everywhere. So like I want people to know that I'm accessible, and I think that's how it starts. But you also learn and meet people just by attending events. I try to go to every event that I can, and that's a great opportunity to just have some real conversations. And if I were just to sit at home and all I do is just attend council meetings, I'm not getting out there. I'm living inside of a bubble. I don't know if I necessarily know what's going on unless I'm out there actively trying to engage people. So social media and Rivertown Times, we have a local newspaper, so I try my best to engage on there, and any updates that I might have, reaching out to Ron, who's amazing. Ron
gets so many shout outs on this podcast. It's crazy. But yeah, Ron is amazing. And I would agree with you there with the getting around and being accessible and being, I think that's why you and Don have both been on this podcast, because you guys do make a good point. And to be straight honest with you is I did not vote for a mayor this year because not one of them was anywhere. And that is something that you could pass on from, I think, a lot of people in this gym, is that we don't see them. We didn't see the last guy that much, and we saw him more, though. And when you're a candidate, we expect to see, we should recognize you. In a small town like this, I should recognize the mayor, and I don't think I would. Right? And that's kind of like something that definitely sits negative with me, and I hope we're going to fix. And I hope that we're going to start to see more of, is counselors like you and Don who are getting out there and getting at these events that are important. When you got 600-700 people showing up at an event to raise some money for somebody who has cancer in our town or somebody who needs a wheelchair, man, it's our town. Leaders are present. Leaders are the first foot on ground, right?
Yeah.
I'd like to see a lot more of that.
100%.
Yeah. So let's get you on the hot seat, man. I had some members reach out. We'll start with some easy ones for you.
Okay.
The first one, you might know who wrote this one. Ask Linden how many times he wanted to puke during the row-a-thon.
That was awesome. Like,
well, that's definitely from Danny.
That was my first time using a rowing machine, and I mean, you can't underestimate how difficult it is, especially for, what was it, an hour, 2 hours. How long did
Yeah,
we?
so background on this, you guys have heard Crews and Brews for Cancer. Linden joined one of our garage teams, which was like, and you reached out to us, which I love too. That was like kind of like I'm like, man, I gotta get this guy in the podcast. I respect that, and I didn't know that you had never been on a rowing machine
Yeah.
until that morning. So we went for 2 straight hours, basically taking turns with 6-7 people on your
Yeah.
team. But that's a lot of rowing. It's a lot of rowing.
So-
You were a little bit gray a couple times when I came by to see you.
Yeah. Well, I'm on the rowing machine. Then Don is actually like right next to me, and he's going ham. Like he's got that garage gym fuel in him or something.
Yeah, he's got something in it. That guy.
But yeah, I felt like a bit lightheaded, and thankfully Jen DeLuca at Waterfront Ice Cream came over and she gave me some candies, and I had that, and I was fueled up, ready to go. But there was a couple points where I sat down. I'm like, oh my god, good thing I have a team, because like me on that machine for 2 hours straight, no, I probably wouldn't be here right now.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah, you were definitely great. So another question, you probably get this one all the time. Why did you run? And then do you expect to kind of move up to the federal level? You can, hey, this is the politics.
So why did I run? I ran because I
Provincial
wanted.
or federal level, I guess would be a better question.
So I ran because I wanted to help Amherstburg. I'm extremely passionate about our community and the things that are happening. I think we really have a gem here. You know, I went out to California recently, and there's certain areas of Los Angeles that are beautiful, but I think what they don't have compared to us is that sense of community where everyone knows everyone. So that was a huge eye-opening experience for me, because yes, they have a beautiful beach and great restaurants and all that stuff, but at the end of the day, it didn't feel like home. I was actually stuck there because of the snowstorm. But that moment kind of realized a little bit that we do have that rapport in Amherstburg. Like it feels like family type of thing. So I love Amherstburg. I love the people that we're surrounded by, and I wanted to get on there and make a difference. I was on a few other boards in town and tried attending events, volunteering, donating, but I wanted to be, at the next level where I could make a really direct impact and be a voice for people.
All right, and level 2 of that question. You think you're gonna?
I don't know.
Provincial or federal in the goals, or what do you?
I'm
focus on now?
playing it by ear, focusing on making Amherstburg better, leaving it better than I found it. I think I said that right.
Better than you found it.
Yeah.
Everybody's. I love that. It's my favorite line. So yes.
But no, we'll see where things go. 4 years is a long way from now. So when my term's done, I'll reassess where I'm at in life, and if I want to, move to a different position or run for councilor again, I'll make that choice in 2026.
Right, and I think that comes like with being. I can tell you when I was 22, the goals I had at 22 that I saw are things that kind of changed drastically, and they could change. You might not, and you might hate this. You might hate the next 4 years. Who knows? I doubt it. I mean, I think you're kind of made for this, and you enjoy it, but you never know. You might hate this. So here's one here. Municipal, man, there's some like real questions. We usually get like only silly ones when we ask these things. Okay, this one's from one of our garage gym OGs here, Liz. Municipal politics is arguably the least glamorous yet most impactful level of government in the day-to-day lives of Canadians. I would agree with that 100%.
Yeah.
What are the top 3 things that residents might not be aware are managed under the municipal portfolio that have great impact on their daily lives? I did not prep him for any of these questions. So
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm trying to think what.
Even if you can give us one.
I mean, most people probably know this, but policing, right? Unless you're with Ontario Provincial Police (OPP), the town pays for the policing service.
I would think most people do not know maybe they know that they're paid for it, but maybe not know the involvement of municipal councils with the police department. I don't think people know that.
I mean,
I do. Obviously, I was kind of in that industry.
yeah,
but,
exactly, right? Like, I don't know.
So that's a good one.
Something like that. No, I just don't want to say an answer that's like, oh, that's super obvious. Like, I don't know, snow plows, like, road maintenance, transit is another one. With the waterfront, so that's a tricky subject. So Duffy's as an example. There's a bunch of ministry approvals that we have to go through. We can't just go and build out Duffy's and create a waterfront plaza. We have to actually go through the Department of Fisheries. So that's not necessarily, it's regulated by upper levels of government. So that might be something that people don't know.
Right. People probably think, why is this building still here?
Yeah, like
right.
Yeah, exactly. Like the water around us, right?
Yeah. So the fisheries, we had Mitch on here from the fisheries department. Like that's a whole other world of like things. But so are there plans with some of these things? So one of the questions that came through was about some of these buildings. So there's the beautiful building on Dalhousie. It might not be Dalhousie if you keep continuing up, but you know the white, it's like a huge white brick building.
Bellevue?
Yeah, what is anything happening with that? I just feel like that is like a gem that could be exploited.
So
exploited in a good way.
Yeah, the last council approved a expression of interest. So they're reaching out to investors, members of the community, to see if there's any level of interest for that building. If somebody were to manage, operate it, buy it, and figure out what they can do with it. So that went out recently. The town bought it, so the town owns it, but they're trying to see if perhaps somebody else would be interested in fixing it up and trying to make it a great center that the community can enjoy.
All right, man. And so, yeah, a lot of people have been talking about Amherst, and I think you talked about things people don't know about in this town. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that everybody understands that the town of Amherstburg, when I say us, we do not own the property of Amherstburg, or of General Amherst, as of yet, at least. It's, owned by the school board, I would assume.
Yeah, so the school board put out an expression of interest, and the town shared that they're interested in the building. So we'll wait and hear back from the school board and go from there. I was against putting any type of expression of interest in the building. I think we need to focus on the assets that we have right now, and we're trying to fix up. You mentioned Bellevue and other things, but I mean, council went that direction, so it's at the will of council, and as a collective, I have to support that decision. So we'll wait and see, what comes back from the school board, and they're going to look at all the people that have put in an expression of interest and go from there.
Right. So that brings up a good question for me, I guess, as it's tough. You've been in politics within schools, and you've held the president of this or that with your school, councils and things like that. But now you step in as the kind of one of the newer guys and girls on the board. You've been there a short period of time. How hard is it when you're like things like that, or things that you don't necessarily agree with? You get outvoted within the council. That's part of council. That's why we have councils. How hard is that to swallow? It can't be easy.
At the end of the day, like I just, as long as I know I made the decision that I believe that's in the best interest of the community, and let's say council goes another direction, I support that decision that we made at the end of the day, because we looked at all opinions and perspectives around the council table. It's tough sometimes, right? Because you might feel passionate about something, but 5-6 others on council might not agree. So you have to just, you know what I mean? You can't win everything.
Yes.
You can't control everything. And that's why we have a democracy.
Right. And the hardest thing, I think, is to be voted down and then continue, because you get voted down, but you are now part of the team to continue on that project, right? Like,
for sure.
So that's got to be definitely a difficulty. I'd say so. So like you've been at this like since you said October. What do you think your biggest surprise has been so far? Things that you did not think would be, personal or professional, I guess?
I don't know. I went into this knowing a little bit about what to expect. I've really, not that I've been surprised with it, but I've really been enjoying getting inquiries from residents in the community, phone calls, emails, and trying my best to resolve their situation. I guess to answer your question, what surprised me is that not everything can be resolved. I can't do everything to necessarily fix an issue. Some of the issues we can't fix. Some we need to look at the provincial and federal government. So I've realized a lot of, the issues I might be dealing with could be out of my control. So that's hard, because I want to help everyone and I want to resolve every issue, but sometimes it's tough to fix everything.
Right. I was having a good conversation with like a special operations general, actually, from Canada just 2 days ago. And he was talking about when you make decisions as any leader, and the council's the very same way, if not more, because there's so many people, right? I make a decision here, I affect 250 people, right? You make a decision, you guys, when I say you, I mean the council, you're affecting, what do we got? What do we have here now? 20,000?
23,000.
Yeah, 23,000 people, right? So they are going to be doing things which you believe is in the color of right, are going to have consequences, unknown consequences to some people, right? So that is something to always, like, with every right turn you make, there's going to be a lot of people who would have been benefited by you turning like council turning left, whether that's from their property lines, for their taxes, whatever it might be. Attracting business downtown, right? Like, very good probably for the businesses, really sucks for the family of 4 who wants to come down here and walk the waterfront, and now there's tons of people, right? So there's like that. That's a good example there of one.
And on that topic, like, another thing that I guess would surprise me is, well, I don't know if it comes as a surprise, but any decision I make, there's always somebody that doesn't like it, right? So you can't please everybody. Not that I went into this position thinking I could please everybody, but it, definitely emphasized the point being in the position now that somebody's not going to like a decision I make, for sure. And I'm always worried about losing relationships when you end up in politics and working for the government. That a decision you make might not necessarily resonate with a family member or a friend, and all of a sudden, do they take that to heart and they want to no longer speak to you because they think the decisions I'm making are not in their best interest? So that's a tough pill to swallow, for sure, right?
Yeah, no, 100% it is. 100% it is. So I got one more question for you. I don't think it's a hard one, so you could breathe a little bit. Lots of concerns are raised, especially in the summer, from residents and business owners downtown, addressing specifically parking downtown. Despite multiple studies being done that address this and outline that there is sufficient parking, it seems that there is a disconnect in what a parking study deems as acceptable versus residents' expectations, which that was one of my issues here. That was long ago, before we were busy downtown. How do you envision bringing this disconnect or closing the gap between this disconnect between what the studies show and what the citizens of Amherstburg expect? And I guess that kind of goes to my question, was like, that is, for me as a downtown business owner, but also as a resident, it's kind of this fine line. Like, really bringing people into this town doesn't really affect the garage gym very much. They're not going to sign up for a membership if they live in Bell River, right? But I do have a lot of friends. I mean, lots of people come here who own businesses downtown. We want to attract LaSalle. We want to attract Cumps. We want people to come here and spend money in these restaurants and the hotels that we might be putting in. But then it's also very disruptive to the average everyday person who wants to come down. Like, how can we close that disconnect? I guess it is a tough question, but that's what you're here for.
Yeah, no, that's why I'm here. And parking is, an interesting topic, for sure. I have different opinions on it. I always want to make sure that if we're adding additional parking, which, I mean, it's up to the residents. If they really feel that we need additional parking, we got to make sure that it's in the right spot. We're not taking up a prime piece of real estate. Perhaps, a commercial business could have been there. Or I don't know, just parking itself. It's a slab of concrete, and you park there. So I want to make sure we don't take another opportunity away if we're adding parking. Do I think we're going to be getting a parking garage? I don't know. I don't think the town's in the right position to necessarily build a parking garage. But if somebody else, like an investor in the community, felt interested, hey, let's build a parking garage, then that's a different conversation. But I also think sometimes there's a little bit of a parking perception issue, where if we don't see parking, it doesn't necessarily mean it's not there. We might have to walk a little bit, and we always have to make sure that accessible parking is available, especially close to businesses and those that are using accessible spots. But if we can find a spot that's reasonable and we can install additional parking, sure, I'm open to that. I'm not closed-minded in saying, hey, no, we don't need any parking, we're good. Because there's always a parking issue, especially if you grow as a community. There's going to be a parking issue, right?
Well, especially if you're going to do your best to keep parking free.
Yeah,
right? Like,
exactly,
if you're
right?
gonna keep parking free, like, then you're justifying, if we're going to take up more lots or more empty lots to provide parking, we're going to be taking away opportunities for businesses to grow. But businesses bring tax money to this town, right? There's different things that go along with that. So we have quite a bit of free parking. I mean, being a person who spends quite a bit of time in Kingsville, which is a similar size, I feel like they have maybe a little bit more parking, but they also don't have the same, the waterfront, layout of the waterfront does cause some constraints, right, with parking because of...
For sure.
Right?
So, and with parking, or really any issue, Going into a council meeting, I have opinions for sure. Things that I think perhaps the way it should go. Let's say I went to a council meeting and we were talking about parking, and I thought parking wasn't an issue. I try not to necessarily, depending on the topic, I like to hear what other councilors are saying and deputy mayor and mayor on a certain topic before I just make a trigger decision and say, hey, no, we need to go this way, right? Because and going back to things that have surprised me a little bit, how important it is to hear from other people on council, because your way of thinking could be very closed-minded, right? So I really enjoy being at council and just listening to everyone before I jump to a conclusion and make a decision.
I'm not gonna lie to you, I might be calling in a tender for this lot next door after this podcast is done and see if I can how much does it cost to put one of those tillers up where they just tap your card, you can park here. That thing does nothing but cost me money and make me cut the grass. I would love to blow it down and just have people park here. $10 all day, right? like in Detroit, I'll get somebody to stand out there. The co-op student can stand out there and fly out people in, make a triple.
They have to hold a
cost
dumbbell
on,
the whole time or something.
Triple the money on Christmas party, Christmas parade day, when everybody's looking to park down here. But no, I agree. I think parking is a tough issue no matter what. I think it's an issue probably in every city no matter what its size, because I can tell you, working in Windsor, parking was always a complaint. And I mean, I was down there yesterday and I'm like, oh my God, I gotta go run to my meter and I can only park here for 2 hours, but I need to be here for 4. There's an issue no matter where you go. I don't know if we will ever close that disconnect between expectations from residents and people coming into town. And that boil over between.
It's tough, right? You got to make sure if you're adding additional parking, it's going in the right spot. It comes down to planning for sure. You want to make sure it's like I said, not taking up space that there could have been an opportunity there.
Right. So. And is there any truth that new building next to Sobeys is going to be an Aren't We Naughty?
I honestly, I don't know. I'm not.
That is the rumor, the garage gym rumor, and everybody's like, what?
I have not heard that. I have not heard that. So.
We presented that to Deputy Mayor Gibb, who comes here, and you had the equal reaction of a huge smile on his face with, I don't know. I will not confirm nor deny.
Yeah.
So we're going to try to get one of you guys on here every once in a while just to keep people in town, and it'll be a podcast that's maybe not as diverse to people who don't live in Amherstburg, but I think being somebody who lives here, I'd love to give it more of a forum for people to come on and talk. And I know when you host politicians, it's probably it's probably received a little bit differently because you are on the board, right? You've got to have that little filter, the buffer.
Yeah, and I always want to make sure that what I'm saying is me. I'm true to myself. I don't want to be scripted at all. It's tough with interviews sometimes with politicians, right? They're always going around the same word. They're finding other ways to say something without really saying anything. I just want to make sure that what I'm saying is me, and it's the truth. It's genuine, and it's just honest.
And how are you going to separate yourself from that? So if that's the image that you've painted, and you're actually in the circles, imagine the people that aren't. Right? Yeah. That's kind of like, me as a cop, people paint a picture of us. How can I make a difference to break that cycle for me? And for every other person who follows me, was kind of always my role, right? I took that on when I worked in the West End, where people, a lot of people did not like the police or had negative encounters with the police. My goal was to kind of change that surface, right? So how do you think you can do that?
It's tough because I can see why sometimes when a reporter asks a politician a question, they don't get an answer. I think we always have to think about making sure we're saying the right thing. That's the tough part. So I don't know. I don't think because we're going back to branding, will I be able to change it completely? No. But the next generations of municipal councilors that are entering the position, I hope to, be a mentor to them, in that they can see how I did it, what I did wrong, how I can change, and they can learn from that. So I'm all for mentoring young people that are looking to get involved in municipal government in any age, really. But I just want to speak the truth. If I don't know the answer, I'm okay with saying, hey, I don't know the answer right now. I'll get back to you. I just don't like spilling out information just for the sake of it.
Right, and answering a question with, I'm not free to talk about that right now, or I'm not educated enough to speak about that, is a good quality answer that I think people kind of like.
Yeah.
You feel like because you're in these positions, you have to make an answer, but you don't have an answer. There's no point in making an answer, right? Like,
yeah, and
so,
that's tough too, because you don't want to make it seem like you're not doing your homework or you don't know enough about the position that you're in, right? Like we were talking about the high school topic earlier. I had to check to make sure I was saying the right thing. Not necessarily that I didn't know what I was talking about, but I needed a refresher. Like there's a lot of things that happen at each council meeting, right? So
yeah, there's a lot of things in those minutes, that's for sure.
Hey.
That's for sure. So man, I always say like to lead, you
Yeah.
need to you gotta take care of yourself. Like I always say, when I go into these businesses and I talk, like if you pulled up here and you had 4 Red Bull cans rolling around on your passenger seat floor, you know, you're rushing late, you hit snooze 3 times, you barely got yourself fed, and you grabbed a bagel on the way in, and you come rolling into a meeting expecting to lead a team or to lead these people that come to my gym, you are not going to succeed for a long term.
Preparation's huge.
Right? So what do you do for yourself to make sure that your head is in the right place to do this job?
Yeah. Well, it's the first time drinking coffee in like a while. I don't drink coffee. You mentioned
I wouldn't
like
have made
Red
you a
Bulls and
coffee. It's
stuff.
called
Hey,
Coffee with Crainer.
I know.
I'm sure
know.
this guy wants a freaking coffee.
But
I don't have
have.
old enough to have a whiskey, so I didn't want I didn't want to pour that out.
Actually, I got ID'd this weekend. So.
Oh shit! You did.
But no, I don't drink Red Bull and all that stuff and it's not in my passenger seat or anything like that. But I always make sure to just have some time to myself, where I can just put on a movie, go to the gym, go for a run.
That's what I want to hear. What are some of the habits
Yeah.
that you have that keeps you kind of like where you need to be?
Yeah, gym, running, listening to music, like not rowing. Yeah, just stuff like that. Like I'm not a big partier. Like I don't do any of that stuff, but just spending time with family is another huge thing to me. So I don't know, just a chillax guy. I don't know. There's not like a huge hobby. I think I want to get started in maybe some type of intramural sport in Amherstburg, whether it's hockey or even pickleball. Pickleball is great. Tennis, just something to keep me on a schedule, and I'm meeting people and I'm in a team, because I really missed that when I was growing up, just being in recreational sports.
Nice. Yes,
So-
no, I think that's important. I think you got to start with those little things like reading,
Yeah.
like, and I think in your industry, knowing, because it can encompass you, and policing did encompass me too. And I think a little bit of advice I would give you is to, like, one, keep your friends that you had that have nothing to do with politics, right? Like,
Yes.
for me, it was like, don't always hang out with cops. Keep those same friends who keep you who
That's
you are,
huge.
which makes you a special politician or a special police officer, but whatever you are doing. And then the other thing is to, read some stuff that has nothing to do with politics.
Yeah.
Like have some hobbies that have nothing to do with it. Like stay outside that world a little bit. Give your brain a break so that when you need to be sharp, you can be sharp.
Yeah, and on that topic, like finding groups that you're not always talking about work is huge. Like, I'll be honest, I don't like going to a family function. Let's say it's in Amherstburg, and all they're talking to me is about what's happening in the town, what's going on here, what's going on there. Like, no, I just want to have a conversation about life, not just like the latest in Amherstburg. And no, I'm not going to be giving you the secrets because you're my close friend or a family member, right? So, yeah, good point. Like, just have a circle that you're talking about stuff that happened in high school, or just some good buddies that you can hang out with.
Yeah, I think you're going to find, especially if you do, if your aspirations do take you further, you're going to find a lot like how I felt as a cop was like,
Yeah.
you become like, you always feel like you got the uniform on because people always want to know about you, right? About your job, about which is your job, which is your role. Yes, there is like the bleed over where you're passionate about it, but there also has to be that shut off where you can go and hang out. So
Exactly, right? Like, I actually, some might not enjoy this part, but I like going into a grocery store or just going out and people recognize me and they're asking me questions about things happening in Amherstburg. I love that. Because like you said, like being able to engage with the public, I don't want to be the person that just stays at home and doesn't go out to dinner because I'm afraid that somebody's going to ask me a tough question, right? So I always want to make sure that I'm out there and people are approaching me. Family time's a bit different. I don't want to talk about politics or anything like that, or being a mortgage agent now. I don't know. Like, I just want to talk about life.
Yeah, let's talk about that. So, mortgage agent. When did this start?
That started January 1st of this year.
Yeah, you're working for the Bondi.
Working for Joe and Ron Bondi. Yeah.
These are good guys. I've known those guys for almost my whole life.
Yeah. So I made a big switch that I don't talk about too much, but I was in the MBA program from September to about November, and it was the last day before I could leave the program without penalties being applied. And I remember I was going for a drive, and I was just wanting to find something that really energized me. And not that the MBA program was bad at all. There's a really great group of people that I was with, but I just felt that I needed something in a professional setting where I could gain some work experience. And if I want to go back and get my MBA, I always can. It's always going to be available for me. So I put it on pause. I'm not calling myself a dropout, because I don't like that term, because education is always there, right? So I left the MBA program, put it on pause, and was looking for some marketing jobs. Realized I didn't necessarily want a 9-to-5 desk job. I needed something that was more flexible, and I could have a schedule and also integrate it with council. So Joe and Ron, Joe had reached out to me about a year ago asking me about being a mortgage agent, and I wasn't 100% sure if I wanted to, and I just reached out to him again. We had dinner, and he sold me on that career path, and I'm super happy to be with the Super Mortgage team, and just getting started.
Awesome, man. So I want to first of all thank you for coming on. I also got to give a shout out to my sponsors, Ian and Kara Murray, Team Murray Insurance. They are Kingsville's one-stop shop for everything you need for home, auto, finances, anything you need insurance for. They can help you out. So look them up at Team Murray Insurance, and I appreciate their support over the years. Also, HQ Nutrition, if you need some supplements. I did not take my Focus today. I should have. I'm going to use it maybe a little bit later. But HQ's supplements, you guys can go on there, check them out, HQ Canada, and use code TANGO15. So, back to you. How do people get a hold of you if they want to? You said you're accessible. You might regret that, but...
You know what, actually, on that topic, I put my phone number out there and my email. It's everywhere. I haven't been receiving as many calls as I thought I would.
Oh my God. Danny's going to listen to this and prank call you at all.
Yeah. Most people,
That's her move.
I'm finding most people just like to email. They send me an email over calling, which is totally okay. But I'm just surprised my phone's not.
It's probably because nobody answers their phone anymore.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I call people, nobody ever answers their phones.
Yeah, I think COVID also had
email's kind of nice too.
A play on that too. But 519-560-1254 or lcrain@amherstburg.ca. You can also send me a message on whatever platform, and I get back to people in like a couple hours.
And let's give Joe Bondi a plug too. How do we get a hold of you if we do need a mortgage?
In my other phone, you can contact me for the best rates, best service in the area. If you're looking for
here we go, Joe.
Mortgage,
$50, Joe. Keep going.
I think Super Mortgage Team needs to sponsor the pod, Joe. 226-787-4745. Give me a call there as well, and I'd love to help you.
Awesome, man. So thank you very much for coming on. I thank you for enduring some tough questions that you were not, that I didn't prep you for. I think that's the best part about coming on this podcast. We don't do any scripting. We just like to shoot from the hip and see how it goes. So
you know what I mean?
Good job today, and good job. And I hope I'm looking forward to seeing what you are going to do for all of us in this community, because we are dedicated to it.
Thank you. Appreciate
it very much.
Thanks for having me.
We're over and out.
Now's the time to do more and be more.